Welcome back to another episode of What Does Josh Know? Today, I have a beautiful audience member, Emma. Again. Before we begin, I'd like to ask you, before the presentation, please take your shoes off. And here's why. What's the big idea? Have you ever walked into someone's home and they ask you to take your shoes off? And after that, you think, well, I really don't want to. Or I really think that my shoes are more comfortable. Or I really don't want to walk on your carpet. Or on the flip side, have you thought, wow, I get to take this rubber off of my feet. Or wow, I can't wait to walk on that soft carpet. Well, there's two types of people in this world. The type of people who ask you to take your shoes off before you enter their home, and the type of people that do not. Now, this practice actually began in Asia. And you learn a little bit about it throughout the rest of this presentation. But it says here, as many Japanese eat on tatami mats on the floor and sleep on futons that are rolled out at night, it seems perfectly logical to keep shoes at the door. In fact, this is the norm in most Asian countries. Yet, interestingly, many European and American families never bothered to insist on leaving shoes at the door. So you can see here in Asian countries, it was an early practice starting, thousands of years ago. And it was a practice of respect. Generally, the Asian homes are set at a little bit of a higher level than the ground floor, or in other words, the street, the entrance, what have you. And so when you took your shoes off to begin with, you'd actually show as a sign of respect that you're walking up into someone else's property. In addition to that, it was at a higher level to maintain cleanliness from all the dirt and the rain and the weathering from below. And really that was important because, like the quote said, they may sleep on the floor on their mats, or they may eat on the floor on their little tables. And so this practice was and is still being lived. And the final thing to mention with the old Asian culture is that their source of heat used to come from the ground. Unlike our ACs and our heaters that come from every part of the house, if your shoes were off, you could feel the heat rising from the floor. And so I asked people in the United States, a couple people I interviewed, 3 questions. Number 1, how do you feel when you're asked to take off your shoes? How do you feel when people walk into your home with their shoes on? And how do you feel when guests enter your home and ask if they need to take their shoes off? The first person I interviewed was a man named Mark Robinson. Mark is 30. He has 2 kids. He's married to a woman named Kylie that I'll mention later. And they live in a brand new home over in Lehigh. When I asked Mark this first question, he said, when people ask me to take my shoes off, I'm annoyed. This may be kind of a douchey thing to say, but my shoes are pretty cool, so I want to show them off. They're a part of my outfit, and plus they have high laces sometimes, and they aren't easy to take off. I think Mark brought up a pretty good point. It's a lot easier to take these kind of shoes off than these kind of shoes. I don't really like unlacing shoes, and I don't think anyone does. And so to Mark, it's more than inconvenient, but he'll show you here. Then he said, plus maybe my socks are dirty. I would much rather have someone's rubber soles on my floor than their sweaty, dirty socks. Now, I don't know about you. I don't know how dirty and sweaty your socks get, but I don't think mine get very dirty. And so to some people, it may be more disgusting or more meaningful to wear their shoes than to wear socks. I think Mark brought up a really good point. And finally, he said, when people walk into my house with their shoes on, I don't even think twice. Usually, I look at people's shoes and I either compliment them or I realize how ugly they are. And so to Mark, it's a little bit more about the fashion and the who you are and what you're wearing than it is about his home and the cleanliness or the respect. He did say one thing that I thought was very interesting. He said, it's kind of like when I walk into someone's home and I'm asked to take my shirt off. Like, why? That doesn't make sense. His shoes are part of who he is and what his outfit is. And so to him, it's not something that he likes or enjoys to do. He left me with one last quote that was, I think, part of the common sense of America. If my shoes were dirty, I would take them off without being asked. And so he has a sense of respect when he knows his shoes are dirty. And I'm sure he would take his shoes off if someone asked, but it's not something he wants to do. Now, his wife was very similar. She said something that I really liked, actually. She said, when people ask me to take my shoes off, I feel weird. I feel like I walk into a we have rules establishment and I have to ask permission to do anything. It's intimidating. Kylie's big thing was that she wanted to feel welcomed. She didn't want to feel pressured. And so when people ask her to take her shoes off, she feels like she's giving up a part of her, doesn't feel comfortable, feels more pressured, doesn't feel welcomed. And so Mark and Kylie see eye to eye on that, and that's why they allow people to wear their shoes in their home. Finally, she said if people walk into her home and ask to take their shoes off, she says, you can if you want. I don't even think twice. Do what's most comfortable for you, because that's what's important to her. Now, the last person I interviewed was a man named Jay Shetland. Now, he's also my dad. Jay, before I was born, when he was my age, he lived in Korea, and he got to experience firsthand what the Asian lifestyle is like. And so he would sleep on the floor sometimes, and he would go into people's homes and eat on the floor, and he would take his shoes off, and he would wear his socks. Some people would be barefoot, but the floor was always very clean, and they maintained that cleanliness. So when I asked him these questions, he was very passionate. To the first question, he responded, I think it's great when people ask me to take my shoes off. I love when people have the same ideas as me as far as their home treatment. He thinks it's totally normal. He doesn't mind unlacing his boots or, however long it takes him, however inconvenient it is. He values the rules of other people, and he values the floor, perhaps. And we'll see what else he values as we go on. To the second question I asked, he says, it depends how I feel when people walk in my home. If they don't know any better, then I need to teach them to respect our house rules. The house rules being no shoes on the carpet. And really no shoes anywhere in the home, but you can walk through the threshold to take your shoes off. Then he said, and maybe I'll teach them how to read because I have a sign at the door. He followed with, if people walk more than a few feet in to my home, I feel violated and disrespected. It's a simple rule, and it's not just about having a clean floor. That's just a bonus. So to Jay, it's not about just the cleanliness. What it's about to him is that he believes his home's a sanctuary. He treats it with respect, and he doesn't want the quote-unquote the muck of other people's lives and the outside world entering into his home. His home means more to him than that. He left me with what I think is a brilliant analogy right here. My home is my sanctuary, and I want it to be respected. It's like if a friend gets in your car and lights up a cigarette. He's getting his garbage all over your space, and I don't like others' garbage in my space. And so my dad, he practices the principles that he learned years ago in Asia. And through my whole life, if you walk through the home with your shoes on, he's not a happy camper. And so we take our shoes off. And he always asks people to take their shoes off. And even if they forget, in the same day, in the same hour, he'll ask you again, please take your shoes off. It means a lot to him. But is he from Asia? Are we in Asia? No, we're still in the Western world. There are people like him all around us. But there are also people like Mark and Kylie all around us. And so he runs a tight ship, and it means a lot to him. So in conclusion, homeowners are all very different. You may or may not value the cleanliness of having your shoes on or off. And you may or may value the identity, who you are wearing your shoes with your outfit. But it's up to you to decide whether or not shoes on your carpet and your floor matter, or if your identity and your outfit and the convenience matters most. Is there any questions?
How would your dad respond if someone just continued to walk in his house with shoes on?
That is a really good question. He generally is pretty forgiving. He'll just tell you again and again and again and again. But if you just keep walking through his home with your shoes on, he'll tell you to leave. He even told me a story where he had a roommate in college whose girlfriend came into their apartment, and he asked her to take her shoes off, and she wouldn't. And so he asked her to leave. And obviously they were not roommates for very long. But he means business, and it's no joke. And so to me, it's a sign of respect. Thank you.